Hi everyone, so today we're going to be looking at the C9 unit and the part which is electrolysis. So electrolysis is the breakdown of ionic compound when molten or in aqueous solutions by the passage of electricity. So we have four main things that we should know that happens in our electrolysis reactions. So firstly we have the electrolyte, which is the chemical compound which conducts electricity when molten or in solution. Then we have our electrodes, which are the conductor through which electricity is passed. So often these are carbon, made out of carbon. We have two types of electrodes. We have the anode, which is positive terminal, and then we have the cathode, which is the negative terminal. So what exactly happens in electrolysis? So as you can see, it is the breakdown of ionic compounds. So for example, if we have a compound of HCl, so in the HCl, we will have a Cl minus and an H plus ion. But what we need to know and remember is that the electrolyte is dissolved in water. So we will also have the OH minus ion and another H plus ion if it's not already there in the compound. So at the cathode, this is really important to remember. We have the H plus ions would tend towards the cathode because they are positively charged. And at the cathode, we have reduction. So the positive ions are attracted and they gain electrons to usually it can form a metal or a gas. So in this case, hydrogen gains electrons to form hydrogen gas, as you can see in the reaction over here. Now let's look at the anode. So at the anode, we have oxidation. So negative ions are attracted and then the ions lose electrons to form a gas or metal or something. So for example, here we have chlorine and oxygen. So in this case, chlorine gas will form. But what happens to the OH minus? Why isn't that formed? So we're actually going to talk a little bit about this now, but you can see this is the reaction for the oxidation of chlorine, and chlorine gas is formed. So what happens? So the product at the anode and cathode depends on the reactivity series, which you can see is over here. This is the rough reactivity series where reactivity increases like that. So this is at the cathode, first of all. So at the cathode, if the cation, which are attracted to the cathode, are below hydrogen, so these three, below hydrogen, the reactivity series, then the cation will reduce at the cathode and the metal forms. But then if the cation is above hydrogen in the reactivity series, so up here, we see hydrogen, the H plus ion will reduce and hydrogen gas is formed. So this is what we see above here. Since we didn't have any other cations, hydrogen was formed. Now let's look at what happens at the anode. So if the anodes are from the ionic compounds are halides, for example, Cl minus, Br minus, I minus, then the element of these ions will oxidize and the halogen gas will form. But if the anion is not a halide, then the oxygen in OH minus will oxidize and oxygen gases form. So for over here in this reaction, linking it back, we have the halide ion, so that will oxidize in preference to the OH minus. So let's look at a real life example of this, which would be electroplating. So why do we electroplate? So it's usually, for example, if we're electroplating the spoon. So we want to coat the spoon with another metal. For example, in this case, we're going to coat it with copper. This may be to improve appearance or to protect from corrosion. There are many different reasons. So what we have in this case, we have our anode, which is actually a copper strip because we want to coat the spoon with copper. And then our cathode would be the spoon. So the electrolyte we have is CuSO4. So what ions do we have in CuSO4? We have our Cu2 plus ion, our SO4 2 minus, and we also have the H plus and OH minus from being dissolved in water. So as you can see, the Cu2 plus and H plus ions go towards the cathode, and then the SO4 2 minus and the OH minus go towards the anode. So at the cathode, we know that there's usually reduction. So as you can see, copper reduces in preference to hydrogen because it is below hydrogen in the reactivity series. and we get copper metal formed on the spoon. So therefore the spoon is coated in copper now. But then what happens at the anode? We would think that oxygen gas will form because there's no halide here based on the rules we said. But this is actually a little bit special. Since the copper strip is the anode and we have the anode is made out of copper, what happens is the copper strip oxidizes and then decomposes. So this is a bit different to the examples above, but this is something to remember for electroplating. So if you're electroplating, using the metal that if the anode is made out of the metal that you're going to coat the cathode with, then the metal will decompose and be oxidized. So this is the reaction for what happens at the anode. Thank you for watching, and I hope that's more clear now and you understand electrolysis and electroplating a lot better now.